How do I clip myself out of the background so I can put myself into a thumbnail? You can see me in my studio here right now. I've got my backpack and tent and all this business, but I don't want any of this background on me, and I don't want to have to set up a green screen or a complex white background. That is a lot of effort. If you've got a good quality video camera, this won't be any big deal in Photoshop because I want to take me out of this image and I'm going to put me into this promo video. As you can see, the great smile and everything, that is the exact same person, but this is the thumbnail that I actually created for a class, and that's one thing I want to show you is the ability to cut yourself out of the background. So let's get right to it. I'm going to zoom in a little here, and there are many tools to clipping yourself out of a background. So I'm going to show you the quickest ways to get there in this particular lesson. On the left-hand side, if you go to the quick select tool, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the quick select tool here, if you click and hold with the mouse button, you will see that there are actually 3 different modes for the object selector. There is the object selection tool, a quick selection tool, and the magic wand selection tool. The object selection tool is a relatively recent addition to Photoshop. It uses some of the AI or artificial intelligence tools here, and this tool is super powerful into getting you done real close. So we're going to choose the object selection tool, and you can see the mouse has a little plus with a little square beside it. And what I'm going to do is literally just click and drag around me, just like you should do with your picture, and release, and voila. You can see what they call marching ants around my head and around my body. No, it didn't quite catch the arm thing there, but it actually did a very good job. Now what I'm going to zoom in here is to see just how good of a job of it did. It did okay, because on this background, the edge of my shirt is highly differentiable against the dark background. My hair does okay. I missed a little bit of hair there, ears, and my shoulder doesn't look quite right, as well as my arm. So now once you get this first selection done, you're actually well on your way to getting yourself clipped out of the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in a lot, and now we're going to choose a different selection tool. So if you click and hold on the object selection tool, we're now going to use the quick selection tool. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The selection tool here is what you use, but we want the quick select tool. Now you can also, and you can see the little target up here is different. It's a little circle. You can hit the W key to change and select the select tool, but to switch between them, the shortcut key is Shift W. And if you look over here, I can go between the magic, the object, and the quick selection tool. So the keyboard shortcut for this one is Shift W on the American keyboard. It's super handy. Now, if I just start clicking on this, I might run into a problem because the selection tool has multiple modes, of course. So you can see here in the top action bar, there is the new selection, the add to selection, and the subtract from selection, and also the click to open the brush size. So right now my selection tool is just a small circle. It's about the size of the iris, or my iris on the picture here. And what I'm going to do is make sure that you select add to selection while doing this. If you hit new selection, it will wipe out my selection and it'll take me backwards. So you want to do the add to selection. Now, if I click into the edge of my hair, just single click, what Photoshop does is it says, hey, okay, I'm going to look for a little bit more of that edge to see if I can capture my hair here. And we'll just capture my ear because I don't want my ear chopped off. That worked pretty well. See, my collar is a little bit missed. So I can just kind of click and drag at that a little bit. Whoa, look what happened. I over-clicked and Photoshop chose part of the background. So what you can do is go to Edit, Undo Quick Selection, or Command Z on the Mac, or Control Z on the PC, and undo that selection. One of the challenges is when you're doing a background selection, it is very difficult for Photoshop to differentiate this light gray from the background. That's going to be a real problem. So I'm going to leave my shoulder kind of a little bit short chopped off there, but I'm going to look at the edge of my shirt. This didn't go too well. So I'm just going to start clicking on those little chops there to see, okay. So it's starting to pick up the background. So now what you can do is, it mostly worked, but I want to get rid of this background, is instead of trying to undo, is we're going to remove selection. So you can see the tool here, the remove or subtract from selection. You can click this, and now you can see that my cursor has a microscopic minus inside of it. So now I can come here and take away from the selection, just kind of chisel that out a little bit there. And then, well, that's okay. So I'll go back to the regular selection, click that. Ooh, it got a little bit of background. So here's a secret hack. Instead of going back and choosing the add to or subtract off, if you hold the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on the PC, you can actually change between add to selection and minus from selection. So if I hold the Option key, now I can quickly chisel away. Oops, a little bit too much. So I release the Option or the Alt key, and I keep picking at me here. Hey, that works pretty well. And this shoulder, that's going to be a little bit tougher to do. So, oh yeah, that's definitely not going to work. So the point here is that sometimes a selection just doesn't work very well, and you might have to live with it. You can actually do a lot more to it. There are other lessons explaining that. But one other thing here is, I see that the carpet is between my arm and my body. I want to definitely chop out that carpet. So I will go to the minus or remove from selection tool, or hit the Option key. And I will just click in this space, and it removes some of the background. Not quite right. So I will go back to the Add to Selection tool, and I will just click in a little bit to see if I can tease Photoshop into not selecting the carpet. Click and drag, and just kind of, oh, too much. I'll hold the Option key down. Now this circle is too big. That's one of the problems, is the selection area. What you do is go to the little selection tool here and shrink this down. It's called the brush size. Shrink it down so it's much smaller. And now I can kind of pick away or add to my selection. Let's see if I can get this away and then add. Nope, this is going to be a challenge, because you can see, even for us humans, the difference between the gray on my shirt and the gray on the carpet is not that differentiable. But the point of clipping you out of the background is that it just needs to be good enough, because ultimately this is a thumbnail. Once you have done this and you think, hey, this is great, this is working well, what I want you to do is come over to the Layers tab here, and then the panel, and in the bottom, we're going to use the masking tool. I'll talk about adding a mask layer a little bit later, but just click on the mask tool and see what happens. Voila! I literally have cut myself out of the background with all of that mess and busyness, and I have something completely usable. In fact, if I hold Shift down and click on what's called this layer mask, you can see the background, and then you can see me, and it totally works. Even though my shoulder was chopped off a little bit, it is visually believable that this is the edge of my shirt. That's not too bad. I did experiment and mess around a little bit more before I made my image here, and you can see my shirt looks a little wrinkled, but really, it's not too bad. I can come in and just brush that out, for instance, and make my shoulder look like it's not a medieval fortress. There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So this requires a lot of fine tuning and tweaking, but the goal here is to get you close enough to where the image is effective and it's believable because remember, a lot of times on a mobile device or a computer, this is how big the thumbnail actually is in visibility or in screen size. So really you looking at crazy detail levels here is actually a waste of time. So instead, zoom out and you say, hey, you know what? That looks good enough because this thumbnail I created, it's never going to be viewed this big. It's going to be viewed this big. And can you see the imperfections on my shirt? No. So clipping you out of the background is a little bit of a magic process, but the ability for Photoshop to give you the object selection tool, click and literally drag around you, makes a huge difference in how quickly you can cut you out of the background to get to a thumbnail that you want.